Welcome back. You are listening to Nate the Hate on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And with that, let me welcome in my co-host, Modern Vintage Gamer.
What's going on, Nate? It's great to be here again. This is our third recording in like a week, and that is because Summer Games Fest week has been going on. And I got to tell you, Nate, I've been really impressed with the quality of showcases, the quality of games we've seen this year at Summer Games Fest. Normally when I go into Summer Games Fest, Nate, I'm feeling, a little bit jaded by the whole industry and the games that they show us. But this year has been very good. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but a lot of really big announcements, a lot of surprises, and a lot of high quality showcases with overall really good pacing. What are your thoughts about that? Like, are you with me on this? Am I overhyping this too much? I think it's been a great Summer Games Fest so far.
I think the week of Summer Games Fest, which includes the Sony State of Play, Summer Games Fest itself, the Xbox Showcase, it has a feeling that's very reminiscent of the yesteryears of E3, where every showcase has a meaningful presentation. It has substantial announcements, and it shows you the potential of the industry. And you could look at any of those showcases and you can point to a handful of significant announcements from, be it a third-party publisher or even a console manufacturer with a first-party game. And that's something that we haven't seen from this span in quite a while. And I think it's great for the industry that it almost feels as though we have fully recovered from the turbulent development cycle of COVID. Now we're seeing the products be produced. They're coming to market. They're getting ready for announcements. And whether it's Capcom, Square Enix, Microsoft, Sony, Sega, there were big announcements from so many companies, and people are walking away from these showcases excited, looking forward to what is to come this year and into next year. And I think that's also something that's been highlighted in these shows, is that we're not getting too many distant announcements. We're getting announcements of games coming out within the next 12 to 18 months. We're not just getting long-term teases and hype trailers. We're getting trailers that are tangible, and we can look forward to the games coming out later this year and in the first half of 2027. And very exciting, good time to be a gamer. I am 100% behind you in that excitement that Summer Games Fest has brought.
Yes, for sure. Dude, my wallet is going to be hurting by the end of this year. There's so many good games I've already tabled that I'm going to buy, but I'm looking forward to all of them. Like there's just some quality stuff. I think everyone that has been following, the past week or so already has earmarked a bunch of games for them that they're excited about. And that's the great thing about SGF this year. There's just been so many great announcements, but we are not done because we have one more to go. What are we talking about today?
We do have one more to go, and it's from what many might call the biggest company of them all. The company that matters most, the company that can always surprise, the company who is going to take your hard-earned holiday dollars. We are talking about Nintendo, because as you said, those wish list of releases coming in 2026 or even early 2027, they're getting very full, but they don't have what Nintendo still has to bring this year. And you're going to add a few more games when it comes to Nintendo releases, not just first-party wise, but also third-party. Because the Switch 2, as we talked about in our last Nintendo-themed episode, the Switch 2 is finally finding its footing. It's gaining momentum. And it feels as though it's just going to catapult. It's going to take off with this Direct. We're going to get significant announcements, not just from Nintendo, but also third parties. We're going to see that software catalog become stronger than ever. Some late ports, new day one releases. It's about time for the Switch 2 to catch up to the other consoles and maybe find itself as a primary platform for some individuals. So exciting times ahead. And we're going to start this episode with third-party predictions for this Nintendo Direct. because third-party support is ramping up. As we discussed in that previous episode, Capcom has been a significant supporter with day one releases with Pragmata, Resident Evil Requiem. They just announced Monster Hunter Wilds is coming to Switch 2 during Summer Games Fest, which I was a bit surprised. I thought that would have been held as a direct announcement because that is a significant release and definitely a huge get for the platform. But we're going to start today by talking about a game you and I each love, a divisive game, coming from 505 and Kojima Productions. Could Death Stranding find its way to Switch 2?
Yes, I think so. I mean, we have talked about Death Stranding before in predictions episodes in the past. I think it was maybe not the last one we did, maybe September Direct or something like that. But Death Stranding is that game that has kind of been heavily rumored to be coming to the Switch 2. And it's a game that is basically everywhere. It's like the Doom of modern games. You know, it's like you can play it on iOS and your iPhone and various other systems. I think Death Stranding is a great get for the Switch 2, Nate. And I'd be very surprised if it doesn't show up. Like I think it's time to see Death Stranding. Did I say Death Stranding 2? I meant Death Stranding, by the way. Death Stranding. Death Stranding 2 is probably something that also exists, but I don't think we'll see that for a while.
I do think bringing Death Stranding Definitive Edition or Director's Cut to Switch 2 makes a lot of sense for 505 Publishing. I think there's significant potential and an audience for that game on a portable platform. And as you mentioned, it's on iOS. It's basically on every other platform that can play the game outside of Switch 2. So I like the prediction of the game coming to the platform. Would it be at this direct per se? That's the only thing I think I have a little bit of a hang up on. And it would depend on when did they get access to dev kits?
Yeah.
How easy was the port to do? Especially with the engine that the game uses. I mean, that's a proprietary engine that has no familiarity to the Switch 2. So that might take a little time. But I would love to see Death Stranding get announced for Switch 2 at this direct. And ideally, it's just a matter of time before it does find its way, even if it doesn't happen here. Because I would definitely have interest in playing that game again in a portable setting. I own that game on PS4, PS5, and Xbox. Wow. And I'd be foolish enough to buy it again on Switch 2.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure. I do think, you bring up some good points about dev kits, whether they've had enough time to bring the Decima engine to Switch 2. Assuming they have, then I think there's no real reason why they would hold it back. But yeah, if it doesn't show up, maybe there's a good reason for it from a technical standpoint. Maybe they just need a little bit more time. But I do like the announcement.
I want to go to Activision because Activision did announce that Call of Duty is coming to Switch 2 later this year, but they were kind of scarce on details. We didn't see any Switch 2 footage yet. We got the basic overview. And considering this would be the first time Call of Duty has been on a Nintendo platform since Call of Duty, I believe, Ghost?
I think it was Ghost on the Wii U.
Right. Yep. So it's been well over a decade since the last Call of Duty on a Nintendo platform. I think if I'm Nintendo, even though I did heavily promote Call of Duty on socials just over a week ago, I think I would want it in the Direct because not everyone follows Twitter. Not everyone follows Nintendo socials. So having in the Direct is that statement maker. So having Call of Duty, a trailer, some Switch 2 footage, or even just additional Switch 2 details like how the mousecon controls will be featured, unique aspects exclusive to the Switch 2 version of the game, I think would do very well in this Direct. So I will predict that Call of Duty shows up at this Nintendo Direct.
I'm going to agree with you. I think Activision will definitely bring Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 to the Nintendo Direct for the exact reasons you mentioned. This is, I think it's been like 13 years, maybe it's longer than that, since Ghosts was on the Wii U. And it really, but it behooves them, right, to show us what Call of Duty looks like on the Switch 2 platform. We want to see how the mouse control works. Maybe there's gyro aiming. Maybe there's some unique Switch-only features in the game. Maybe there's game chat with your friends. There's definitely some possibilities here. We want to see how well it performs. Is it going to run at 60 frames per second everywhere? What about the multiplayer aspect of it? Will it be, we'll have all the various maps and everything associated with it? Like, there's a lot of questions here that people want to see. So yeah, I think this is about as close as a lock as I think you can get at this point for third party.
You also had Call of Duty Black Ops and Black Ops 2 recently rated, I believe it was the Korean rating board, or it might have been Taiwan, showing that those titles were rated for Switch 2 release. So if those games are destined for the platform, this is the perfect venue to announce them.
Yeah.
Assuming the ratings are accurate. So kind of have to keep that in the back of our minds. Could we be seeing additional Call of Duty games be announced for Switch 2 at this Direct if those ratings are correct? So find out about that. Another Activision Blizzard game I want to predict will show up at this Direct is a Switch 2 port of Diablo 4. We had Diablo games come to Switch, and Diablo 4 just feels as though it would be a very good fit for Switch 2. Again, due to the mouse Joy-Con feature. Just feel very natural. And it just seems to make a lot of sense to bring that game over. I don't see any reason why it can't come over from a technical standpoint. And if I'm Activision, I want to start really getting myself established on this platform, because they're going to become a partner moving forward, especially with Call of Duty. So bring over as many of your properties as you can. And I do have one more Activision prediction to share. This may surprise you.
Go on.
I'm going to predict that Sekiro comes to Switch 2.
Whoa.
Why not?
That's from left field, but I like it. I like it. Sekiro, huh?
Why not? FromSoft is bringing Elden Ring over.
Yep.
Let's bring one of their other great games. Let's bring Sekiro over. Activision owns the rights to it, and it never came to Switch. There's nothing really like it on the platform right now.
It was also a Game of the Year winner several years ago too, right? The Game Awards, I believe.
Yes, it was. Has that nice rhythm-based parry system. We all know how much you love parry.
Oh.
And I think Sekiro just makes a lot of sense to bring over to the Switch 2 at this time. And I hope it does happen, because I think there is an audience for that game.
I like the prediction. I hate the game. And it's not because I hate the game, because it's not a good game. It's a fantastic game. I hate the game because it is brutally difficult, and I've always struggled playing it. But it's a very, very good prediction. I like where you're headed with this one. Now, it's not Activision per se, but it kind of is, right? So the Spyro announcement. Do you think Spyro also gets a trailer at the Direct? We saw it on the Xbox showcase. And it is kind of Activision adjacent, with Toys for Bob. But Spyro is a beloved franchise, and I think it would show well at a Nintendo Direct. Any thoughts on that, or you think this is Xbox's thing and no one else gets it?
I could see it make an appearance here, especially because it's a family-friendly game. Nintendo Direct, it's a Nintendo family-friendly product, so I don't think it would harm the game in any way to have some representation at the Nintendo Direct. I think my only question would be, in such close proximity, is it necessary? Nintendo did advertise the game on their socials today, and I guess you could go back to the Call of Duty debate of, if Nintendo put it on their socials, do you need to put it into the Direct? And there's benefits to putting it in the Direct, especially a game like Spyro, a very lively fan base, very passionate fan base at that. So having it there could definitely benefit everyone involved, the game, publisher being Activision, Microsoft, and Nintendo just being able to advertise the game further for their platform, even though the game doesn't come out till early 2027. But yeah, there's no reason that the game couldn't make an appearance. I guess it's just a question of, does it have to at this point in time? But if it did make an appearance, it wouldn't surprise me. Now, I want to go to Atlas. Atlas so far hasn't had really meaningful presence on the Switch 2. We do have a Persona port that came out last year, but now people are hungry for more. They're wondering, especially after Persona 4 Revival getting a release date during the Xbox Showcase and Persona 6 being shown, people are wondering, are these games coming to Switch 2? And, I haven't heard anything about these games coming to Switch 2, but given that all prior Persona games had come to Switch, same time as they arrived on the Xbox, it feels as though it's just kind of an inevitability that they will show up to Switch 2. And if they are destined for Switch 2, maybe Nintendo did pull one of their marketing type deals of don't show our logo at the Xbox Showcase because we're going to announce the game for our platform next week. And I think to coincide with the announcements of Persona 4 and Persona 6 coming to Switch 2, I think Atlas would also want to announce that Metaphor ReFantazio is coming to Switch 2. And this is a prediction we have given a couple of times now. I've even said I have heard Metaphor ReFantazio is Switch 2 bound going back to January. And it's just one of those games. It's a matter of when will Atlas announce it. And now feels like it's a good time to announce that title is coming to Switch 2. Because the audience is waiting for it. The audience is hungry for it, and it will sell well on the platform.
Yeah, I like Metaphor as a direct announcement. I'm going to disagree with you on Persona 6 in that I do believe it will exist, or it does exist on the Switch 2 in some capacity, but I don't think they left out the logo because they want to reveal it at a Nintendo Direct, at least this one. I think it's coming, but I think it's coming later on. So I think right now, I'm not sure if we're going to hear anything about Persona 6 at this Nintendo Direct, but I do like the prediction about Metaphor ReFantazio. I think that's going to get announced.
Yeah, I think the situation with like Persona 4 Revival and even Persona 6, it's just a question of when did Atlas get these dev kits? When were they able to start production of a Switch 2 port? And, maybe they're just not ready. So maybe announcing them now would be a bit premature. And eventually the games will likely come to the system.
Yeah.
It just makes sense for them to arrive. It's just a question of will they be late ports or could they potentially still be day one, but confirmation may come a little closer to launch. I want to go to Bandai Namco. They finally gave us a release date for Elden Ring.
Yep.
But could they have more in store for the Switch 2? We've seen numerous rating leaks related to the Tales of series. We did get a release date and new trailer for Ace Combat 8. But could we have something else come from Bandai Namco for Switch 2? Or do you think the only thing they have in store for Switch 2 this year is Elden Ring?
I think the only thing they have for Switch 2 is Elden Ring. Although I want to be clear, right? So Duskbloods is not Bamco. That's From Software and Nintendo.
Well, yes.
Yeah. So if we're not saying Duskbloods, then I think From the only thing they have is Elden Ring. Obviously that's been dated, and you can pre-order it and everything. But I still think that maybe there's another trailer they want to show us of that game, and just to really solidify the fact that, we had some stumbles with this game last year when we showed it off at various events, and it wasn't really showing very well. And I think they just want to make sure that people really understand that this game is running very, very well on the Switch 2 right now. And there is a good reason for you to part with your hard-earned $80 for the game, plus the expansion. So I think there's a trailer for Elden Ring. I don't know if there's anything beyond that though, but I feel like you're going to tell me something that I'm not thinking about. So what do you got for me?
I'm going to predict another FromSoft game, Armored Core: Fires of Rubicon.
Damn, you're just dropping bombs right now.
There's no reason not to bring that game over.
It'd be a great get for the Switch 2. I'd love to see it.
That's a game I would consider double dipping on.
Yeah,
I
I would too.
I really enjoyed my time with Fires of Rubicon on Xbox when it came out a couple of years ago. And if they could get it to run well in handheld mode, I might actually play through the game to see all the endings.
Very
But
good.
I'm going to predict that because I just want, I mean, look at the trend. We brought up Elden Ring. I brought up Sekiro. Now I'm bringing up Armored Core Fires of Rubicon. Clearly, I want FromSoft on this system in a heavy way.
Yeah. I do want to touch on Ace Combat 8 because that's another one that, you could say, well, Ace Combat 8 got announced, right? But we didn't see a logo for Switch 2. I think it's going to be very similar to Ace Combat 7 in that regard, where it will show up eventually, but not at this direct. I think it will get announced. And Ace Combat 7 on the Switch 1 ended up being a great port. So I think it really just is a matter of announcing that at a later stage. Maybe at a Tokyo Game Show type setup, maybe at a September direct, but not at this point at least.
I want to go to Bethesda because Bethesda actually has an outstanding game coming to Switch 2. And by outstanding, I mean not outstanding as in good. I mean outstanding as we need additional information around it. And that is the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. They announced that it was coming to Switch 2. We never saw any footage, just had the announcement of the intent to bring it, but they stated that it was coming out in 2026. Well, it's now June, and 2026 is halfway through, and it feels as though we need to get a look at the game. We have to see the state of this game, because this was a game that was notorious for running poorly on PC, Xbox Series, and PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
So how much confidence can one realistically have that it would be a competent port on the Switch 2? So if you're Bethesda and you've promised to bring this game over to Switch 2, you really have to deliver a quality port with it, and you have to show it. You also have to give it a release date. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Bethesda to give a first look and release date for Oblivion at this juncture. Do you agree, or do you think Oblivion could just be one of those social media drops randomly one day over the summer with a release date attached, or even a shadow drop? Because keep in mind, Oblivion was a shadow drop when it came to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC last year.
That's true. And it was a pretty hype announcement. I think I don't think it's a Twitter drop. I think it's in a direct, and I think it's a good prediction to make. But it may just be in one of those little sizzle reels portions of the direct itself that, hey, it's here, it's got a date, it's coming out. But I do like Oblivion for this. I do think that they need to show the game, and you're right, the game has kind of had some stumbles, particularly with things like traversal stutter and various streaming issues where you're on the horse, you're riding around, and it just kind of locks up because it's kind of loading in the next section of the game, whatever. But on the Switch 2, look, I'm hopeful that the reason why we haven't seen it yet, Nate, is because they've been very busy optimizing the game. So yeah, I like the prediction, and I do think it's time to see more of that game. So it makes sense to be at this direct.
Now, what we saw at the Xbox showcase from Bethesda was the official reveal and first trailer of Doom Dark Ages DLC expansion. Now, previously, when we have talked about Doom the Dark Ages coming to Switch 2, we were both in agreement that it would likely not be announced until the DLC expansion had officially been announced.
Yes.
Now that has happened, do you think this direct is the venue of choice to announce Doom Dark Ages? Is Switch 2 bound? Or do you think maybe Bethesda holds it a little later into the summer? Perhaps something like QuakeCon, as example.
No, I think it's at this direct. I think QuakeCon is not the right venue for a Switch 2 announcement for Doom the Dark Ages. I think if you want to maximize impact, Doom, obviously 2016 and Eternal, were both announced at various directs over the years. Big announcements. I don't see any different here. I think Doom the Dark Ages on Switch 2 is a pretty good get, right? So I'm kind of expecting to hear something about Doom the Dark Ages at this direct personally, minus the DLC, which will come later on.
Interesting. See, I'm of a different notion. I am of the notion that they would release a complete edition on Switch 2, including the DLC. I think my only uncertainty would be where do you time this release? The DLC is coming to PS5, Xbox, and PC in July. So if Doom the Dark Ages is to come to Switch 2, when would be the ideal time to drop the release? I'd want it as close to that July release as possible, because if you come out too far after that DLC drop, it loses a lot of its appeal. So I think I would want a complete edition to come out sometime this summer, ideally, but it just comes down to when did they gain access to dev kits and how smooth was the development process of bringing the game over to Switch 2. And you and I both played Doom Dark Ages, and if anyone's ever seen a trailer of it, you know it's a very fast-paced game.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a slow Doom by any stretch. This is far faster than Doom Eternal. This game is quick. And you had a lot of customization features where you could crank up the speed to fairly comprehensible speeds. So it all comes down to how well are they able to optimize the game and when can they get the game out. In your opinion, do you think Doom Dark Ages, if announced, comes out this year on Switch 2? Or do you think it would be something that maybe we'd see in 2027?
Ooh, that's a tough question considering how stacked this year already is, especially the, Q4, Q3. I could see it coming out this year on Switch 2. I think, you mentioned SGF. One of the great things about it was the majority of announcements were for the next 12 months. So I think it's probably this year, but it could be late, right? It could even be that first week of November, before GTA, just when everything is quiet, right? But if you have a window of a couple of weeks before GTA 6 comes out, maybe drop it in November. I could definitely see something like that. I'm hopeful that it would come out this year, but could very easily get pushed out to February or somewhat 2027.
Uh-huh.
But I think if you announce it at a June Direct, I don't think people want to wait too much time, and you're pretty confident that the game is ready. But I'm going to say probably late 2026. We'll see it.
Okay, I could definitely, yeah. I mean, I would say that's within the realm of realistic possibility. I just feel as though they have to get it as close to possible as the DLC expansion release on other platforms so that it has appeal.
Yeah.
So hopefully we do see the game get announced, because I think now is just the right time. The expansion's been announced for other platforms, so now is a good time to announce that Doom Dark Ages is coming to Switch 2. Now I want to go to Capcom. As mentioned earlier, Capcom has been a huge supporter of Switch 2, dating back to launch a year ago with Street Fighter 6. And since then, they have just been a very reliable partner for the platform. And there's no reason to think that's going to change. As we've discussed in the past, ports of Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 Remake are planned for Switch 2. This feels like the venue to announce it, especially considering they just confirmed that Resident Evil Veronica will be coming to Switch 2 in 2027. So let's get those games over on the system as soon as possible. I think they will also follow what they did with the Japanese release of these games, where they did a Resident Evil Generations Volume 2 collection. Yep. And as you'll recall, we have Volume 1 on Switch 2. It includes 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah.
So makes a lot of sense for Capcom to do that with 2, 3, and 4. We had Monster Hunter Wilds confirmed for Switch 2 during Summer Games Fest. And as we discussed back in March, it also leaked in some rating boards that Devil May Cry 5 is coming to Switch 2. And I think this is a good time to announce that project as well. I also think this will be the venue that Capcom officially confirms that Onimusha is coming to Switch 2 day and date with the other versions in September. And hopefully they're able to release the demo of Onimusha on Switch 2 following the Direct so that people can play it, get a feel for its quality, and generate some hype and excitement for that release on the platform. That's a lot of Capcom predictions here.
Yeah.
But Capcom is really backing the Switch 2. So I think these are all very realistic.
I agree. I agree with everything you said. I'm not trying to, just be a fence sitter or anything like that. Everything you said, I 100% agree with. I like the Generations 2-pack with 2, 3, and 4. I like the idea of Onimusha as well, getting day and date, because we know that Capcom has the ability to bring anything day and date on Switch 2.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm kind of really on board with your predictions. Can I also say Ghosts and Goblins as well? Just putting that into the universe.
I'm actually shocked you brought up Ghosts and Goblins. I thought you were going to bring up a different game.
What game?
I thought you were going to bring up Dead Rising Remaster.
Oh, well, that's not a bad prediction to make. That game came out a couple of years ago now, and I quite enjoyed my time with it. That'd be really great to see on the Switch too.
I thought you were going to bring up that one because when you think of that game, if that was essentially a reboot for the franchise, let's say, if you have intentions of making a sequel, you'd likely want to bring it over to Switch 2 just so you have that base.
Yeah.
So
I forgot about, I'll be honest, I forgot about Dead Rising remake. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time with that game. It was a good one for sure.
I didn't play it because I think the price kind of turned me off when they had initially announced it. And maybe if it came to Switch 2, I would give it a consideration. But as you said with Ghost and Goblins, if they gave me a Switch 2 edition of Ghost and Goblins Resurrection, I'd buy it again.
Yeah.
But I would need a retail release. The fact that game remains digital only is a crime against humanity.
For sure.
It's such a good game.
But yeah, I think Capcom is continuing to be one of the premier third parties on Nintendo platforms, and they'll have a pretty big presence at this Direct, I'm sure.
I want to go to Electronic Arts. They confirmed that Madden is coming to Switch 2 later this year, and they confirmed that it would be targeting and even achieving 60 FPS while played at certain settings. They've also talked about some other new features coming to it. And if you recall, going back to last year, EA had a fairly meaningful presence in the first Direct regarding Switch 2, where they had confirmed they had confirmed Madden and just future commitments to the platform. And we have in the past kind of speculated and given predictions of maybe Mass Effect Legendary Edition or the Jedi games, Jedi Survivor, could come over to Switch 2. And so far, no representation from those franchises. Do you think that'll change, or do you think right now Madden is the nearest and only game coming from Electronic Arts in 2026?
I think a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So Madden will be at this Direct, and it will be represented for sure. You come out, you say that you got the 60 FPS working on the game, which is huge for the fans. Mass Effect Legendary Edition, as much as I want to put that out into the universe again, because we did predict it back in our last partner showcase predictions, nowhere to be found. And I'm not really sure why. Personally, I am a big Mass Effect fan, but maybe Mass Effect isn't really that interesting to EA right now. Maybe it's something that they've kind of I don't want to say put on the back burner, but on the pecking order of priorities, maybe it's not right up there with the big things. But I do like the Jedi games, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi, the other one, can't remember what the other one's called. Those games I feel like will show up on the Nintendo Switch. And I have just this feeling that they're going to be at this Direct. I don't know. It's not there's no rhyme or reason for it. I just think it's time we saw it, one or possibly both of those games get announced. So yeah, I'm putting those into the universe.
So what you're saying is you feel it in the Force.
I do. I've felt it. So could happen.
I mean, I'm really interested to see how EA does approach their Switch 2 support, because if there's any publisher who has a vast backlog of games they should consider porting over to the platform, it's EA. Because EA had minimal support of Switch 1.
Yes.
They did not release many games on the platform at all. So when you look at the games they have put out over the last 8 years, you could look at any of them and say, this would be a good port over to Switch 2. Something like Mass Effect Legendary Edition, as we've discussed. Even the Dead Space remake would be a fantastic fit for the platform. But I just don't know how committed EA truly is to Switch 2, even after bringing Football Club and Madden to the system last year. And, it just feels as though that's going to be a repeat. Maybe they do just focus on sports games in the immediate until that user base grows a little more and EA becomes more familiar with the hardware. So right now, my expectations for EA remain pretty low, but I'm hopeful that they can surprise.
Well, there is one little nugget that you may have forgotten about, and that is Apex Legends. It is already running on the Switch 2, developed by Respawn, using the same tech as the Jedi games.
That's a good point.
So
very good point.
Maybe they were just testing the waters with their tech and, the response that they would get. So I'm feeling good about those Jedi games. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
We shall. Now I'm going to give a prediction from Epic, because Epic announced a Switch 2 game last year called Out of Words, and this is a kind of like a claymation co-op, unique looking game. We haven't seen much of it, but it definitely feels it's a game that would cater to the Switch 2 audience more than other platforms. And we haven't seen much of the game at all. And it just feels as though this would be a good venue to resurrect the game, just to give it a nice, fresh look. I don't think it would get a significant presence in the Direct, maybe, a sizzle reel type of thing. But I'm kind of expecting that game will surface again.
I'll be honest, I don't remember this game, so I had to go back and read up on it and watch the trailer. And I remember this game now after you mentioned it. This fits the Direct, and if you're saying it was previously announced, then yeah, what the hell? Stick it in there. It fits the sizzle reel vibe of the Direct, that middle portion of it, or that, towards the end before the one more thing announcement. So I like it.
It also would transition well into this next one from Kepler, and that is Orbital's co-op anime style game. It's been dated in the sense that it's coming out this summer to Switch 2. So it needs an actual firm release date. So really there's no way it doesn't make an appearance in this Direct to get dated.
Yeah.
What's your prediction for a release date for this game? All they've said so far is summer 2026. When do you think this summer the game will release?
I'm going to say August.
Okay.
Towards the end.
That's a good prediction. I think with you saying August, I'm going to go with September. Ooh. It just doesn't have enough games.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not stacked or anything.
No. Good place to put in a game like Orbital. Now, Koei Tecmo. Today at the Xbox Showcase, they announced that Wolong 2 will be coming to Switch 2. Now, on its own, that may just be like, oh, that's a really neat get. That's a cool announcement. But then it made me think. Direct coming up. Wolong 1 isn't on Switch 2. That seems like a good Direct announcement to announce the first game is coming to the platform.
Yeah.
And I think if I was Koei Tecmo with Team Ninja, I think I would shadow drop that game. And I would shadow drop it because they just re-added the title to Game Pass.
Yeah.
What better marketing than to have it on Switch 2 as soon as possible? Get people interested in the game, build up anticipation for the sequel coming to the platform, then by putting the game available right now. It's a crazy prediction, I will admit that. But it makes a lot of sense when you really think about it, doesn't it?
It does. Timing is good. Wolong would be a good game on Switch. the tie-in with the Game Pass announcement, the tie-in with Wolong 2 at the Xbox Showcase, as you mentioned. It all kind of aligns. So yeah, I like it.
Now we have to discuss Konami. Konami continues to surprise. We had a nice Castlevania trailer today of Castlevania Belmont's Curse. We also got a release date of October 6th. And the trailer continues to lack a Switch or Switch 2 logo.
Mm-hmm.
Do you predict or expect that Konami will announce Castlevania Belmont's Curse for Switch 2 at this Direct?
I do. Even though I just literally am contradicting myself when I was talking about Persona 6 that did not have a Switch 2 logo, and I said that it's coming later on, that's why it didn't have one. In this regard, there's no reason why Castlevania would not come out day and date on Switch 2 in October with the other versions. So I do expect that we will see a follow-up trailer or a Switch 2 exclusive trailer, I guess, for that game with a Switch 2 logo on it to come out later this year in October with the rest of the versions. Maybe even a Switch logo. Who knows? But that's beside the point. I think it's definitely getting dated. In the Direct, it's definitely getting a Switch 2 version.
Definitely hope so, because that game looks fantastic, and that's the type of game I would love to play in my leisure in a undocked portable setting. You know, sit on the couch, lay in bed, especially in October as the weather gets cooler. Get under a blanket, put a few candles on, and play Castlevania. Have the music blast into your headphones, and that's just bliss.
Halloween, baby. Halloween.
Yes, exactly. Smell of autumn in the air, Halloween, vampires. It's perfection. Now, I'm going to bring up two Konami games that I've discussed in the past that I had heard would be coming to Switch 2. Silent Hill 2 and Metal Gear Solid Delta. If they are still bound for the system, I think now is the time to announce them. We've seen the updates made to Unreal Engine 5, and these are Unreal Engine 5 games. So hopefully they'll be able to smooth out the performance enough that the games are in a good running state. Metal Gear Solid Delta definitely had some performance issues when it had come out on PlayStation and Xbox. But if you could get the game running solid enough on Switch 2, I think there's an audience for the game, especially when you consider that Metal Gear Solid Volume 2 with Metal Gear Solid 4, Ghost Babel, Peace Walker will be coming out in August. I think having Silent Hill 2 Remake on Switch 2 would be a huge release.
Yeah.
Or Metal Gear Solid Delta. And then you have Silent Hill 2 as a huge release to follow, maybe again around that Halloween window. But there is one other title I think now we have to consider. Silent Hill F.
Yeah. Any of those games I think could show up. There's a couple of different arguments I could throw out there. The first one is Bloober Team has already got their hands dirty with Chronos on Switch 2. So maybe that was the game to kind of get your feet wet on the hardware, and now you're porting Silent Hill 2 over to Switch 2. So that would be a good one. And we have talked about Silent Hill 2 as well in the past for a Switch 2 title. And I do like the format of that game on Switch 2. I think it's a good one. Metal Gear Delta, absolutely. I can talk about the Volume 2 collection of the Metal Gear Solid on Switch 2. We know that's coming. So there's no reason why I don't think Delta could show up in some capacity. Silent Hill F is also another good example of a game that could show up on Switch 2. I think you flip a coin at this point, and you come up with one or possibly more of those titles. I don't know if Konami's going to show up in the same way as Capcom is, but I do like Castlevania, and pick one of those three titles. I'm personally going to say Silent Hill 2 is the game, but that's just a guess.
I mean, I think I want to be greedy and say Metal Gear Delta, Silent Hill 2, and Silent Hill F show up. Because going back to last year, remember I had made mention that I had been hearing that Konami wants to be a significant partner on the platform, and we didn't see anything from Konami really in 2025. We did have a launch game from them with Survival Kids.
Yep.
People are going to say we did. Yes, we did. You didn't buy it. Nobody did. But these were Konami's biggest releases over the last few years. And it also positions them very well for future projects. So when the Silent Hill 1 remake eventually happens, Konami can be ready to bring it to Switch 2 because they will have built that base with these games on the platform. So I want to be greedy. I want all 3 of those games announced for Switch 2 at this Direct and released this year. Now we have to go to Sega, because Sega loves Nintendo. We've had the leaks all around the Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition. The game still hasn't been announced, so it feels like a good Direct announcement. We just had Crazy Taxi announced at the Xbox Showcase with its first trailer. Yeah. That's right.
That was an awesome announcement, by the way.
It was. But do you think anything else could be coming from Sega to the Switch 2? Do you think they have any other surprise announcements or any other late ports that just feel good fit for the platform?
Oh, I mean, this is another one where I think Sega is definitely going to show up to the Direct. It's just a matter of what are they going to show us. We could see some more Yakuza. We could see a new mainline Sonic Frontiers 2. We could see Crazy Taxi show up on Switch 2 with a different trailer. A lot of possibilities here. Alien Isolation 2 was also announced at SGF, which I believe had a Switch 2 logo on the end of it, Nate, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of possibilities here. A lot of possibilities. I always like my pick that has never happened, the Sonic Adventures Collection. Just gets announced for Switch 2 because why not? But yeah, there's a lot of different things here that we could consider. There's talk about Jet Set Radio. I'm not sure if it's quite time yet for that one. But Sega's working on other things that we haven't really seen yet, and they did announce in their investor report recently that a lot of these games were coming out in the next 12 months, if I'm not mistaken. So, there's other games that we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen I think there's a Golden Axe game. There's a Streets of Rage game. A lot of possibilities that they could show us at this Direct. I like your, I'm being greedy and I want to see everything. So I'm just going to say we're going to see a bunch of Sega stuff at this Nintendo Direct without being very committal about which one, because I have no idea. But Sega will definitely show up at this Direct for sure.
I think Yakuza will have representation at this Direct. I feel as though every Nintendo presentation dating back to the Switch 2 launch has had Yakuza or Like a Dragon representation. Yeah. And I see no reason for Sega to buck the trend. So announce the next port of a Like a Dragon Yakuza game destined for Switch 2 that will release later this year, and just keep the flow going until you run out of games. So that's my expectation with Sega. Something from Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Anything else? Any Sonic stuff?
At best, Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition. I don't think we'll get a new entry or anything like that at this Direct. I want to bring up Sandfall. As in the past, I have mentioned that Expedition 33 will come to Switch 2. And I think this Direct is the time for them to announce it. The game's been out for well over a year now, and just feels right.
Yeah.
Feels right to get the game out before this year concludes.
I think this one is definitely something that was always Switch 2 bound. And if there's a game that I feel like they just needed more time to optimize and get running on Switch 2, maybe they were late on getting dev kits. I think it's purely technical reasons why the game hasn't shown up. And I'm not saying technical because they can't get it to run well. I think it's just technical because they're just getting the game ready on Switch 2. So yeah, I like Expedition 33. Game of the Year winner. there's no reason why, it shouldn't be on a Switch 2 platform.
Yeah, I mean, it's an Unreal Engine 5 game, so I'm sure a little more optimization was likely required, especially for handheld play. And you're better off polishing the game so you can release it in a good state.
Yep.
And just feels like the timing is right for Expedition 33 to be announced for Switch 2. Now, I want to go to Square Enix. Square Enix just confirmed that Final Fantasy VII Part 3, also known as Final Fantasy VII Revelation, will be coming to Switch 2 day and date with the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC release. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just came out on Switch 2 earlier this month. And they also announced that Dragon Quest XI will be coming to Switch 2 later this summer. So Square Enix definitely bringing a lot of support to the platform. What are your predictions from Square Enix for this Direct, if any?
I think I'll be there with something. I'm not sure it'll be of a significant magnitude this time round. I would like to see a Switch 2 specific trailer of FF7 Part 3, just in the same way they did with Remake. I think there's definitely a good reason to show us that. Adventures of Elliot did get a release date, so maybe they'll just throw a trailer in there for good measure as well. But I'm trying to think of other things that they could potentially come to a Direct with. Unless they have a new IP that they're going to announce or a new game announcement that's specifically exclusive to the Switch 2, it's hard to predict anything else at this time. We just saw the release of Rebirth, as you mentioned. FF7 Part 3 just got announced, so maybe a trailer for that, but I don't know what else, Nate. I think it may be a little bit quiet on the Square Enix front at this Direct.
That's fair. I'm going to predict something that is based on recent Square Enix activity. They recently pulled the Kingdom Hearts Cloud Editions from the eShop. And as you may recall, there were some rumors earlier this year suggesting that we would have the Kingdom Hearts Complete Collection come to Switch 2, and then silence followed those rumors. No further claims to back it up. But following the Cloud Edition removal, I think we see Kingdom Hearts Complete Collection get announced for Switch 2 at this Direct.
It's a good pick.
I also think, in conjunction with what we saw at Final Fantasy VII Part 3, they confirm intent to bring Kingdom Hearts 4 to Switch 2.
Yeah, but very good picks. Very good picks. Especially if they, I wasn't familiar with the fact that they removed the cloud versions. And usually when they do that, there's varying reasons for it. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe they're just upside down on server costs and it just doesn't really make sense anymore. But there's also the other aspect where they could just bring it to the Switch 2 as a collection of games. And that would be a great place to announce at a Nintendo Direct. So I'm going to will that into existence with you and say that's what's going to happen. I like it.
It makes a lot of sense. There's definitely an audience for Kingdom Hearts on Nintendo platforms, even if it has been a while since the last true release. But when you go through Nintendo's history, you had Kingdom Hearts appear on the Game Boy Advance. You had an exclusive release on the 3DS. So to bring Kingdom Hearts back on a Nintendo platform with the complete collection, and then ideally confirm Kingdom Hearts 4 is also coming to Switch 2, I think that's all Square Enix has to do. It will also show how committed they are to the platform beyond just their commitments to Final Fantasy. And Kingdom Hearts fans probably get very excited. It's just kind of a question of how would you release this if you're Square Enix? Because so far, Square Enix keeps doing game key cards.
Yeah.
They seem very hesitant to do a standard full game on a card release. And some of it does come down to file size, as we've seen with Rebirth and Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. The file size far surpass what a game card can hold, so the game key card is their only path. With Kingdom Hearts, I don't know what the file size is of the complete collection, but even if you could just throw Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 on a game card, or maybe Kingdom Hearts 3 on a game card, it would at least make it a little more enticing to consider double dipping or even triple dipping, depending how hardcore Kingdom Hearts fan you are. But if they release the games individually from the collection, if you could just get Kingdom Hearts 1 HD or Kingdom Hearts 2, that would also be an appealing approach, because some people just have love for one or two of the games, or maybe they just want to replay one of the games. And having Kingdom Hearts in a portable setting for the first time, I think that'd be a big deal. So like you said, let's will it into existence. Let's see the Heartless get defeated with the Keyblade on Switch for the first time.
Definitely be a good one.
Now for the meat and potatoes, the first party portion of the predictions. Even though I think third party is going to have the most significant representation in the Direct, people still tune in to see what does Nintendo have planned for the Switch. And we discussed a lot of stuff back in March as to what the 2026 lineup was shaping up to be, at least through late summer to early fall. And since then, we do have release dates for Star Fox coming out later this month, Splatoon Raiders coming out in the end of July, Rhythm Heaven at the beginning of July. But everyone's wondering, what's next? Like Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave feels as though it has to be at this Direct and get a release date. When do you think Fire Emblem will release?
Oh God, I honestly I have no idea. It's when do Fire Emblem games usually kind of show up? Is there any kind of cadence for that? Because like we can't just throw
Traditionally,
out
no.
We can't just throw out September, October, because man, I mean we're talking about 2 months that are literally just stacked full of games. I mean, Fortune's Weave. Here's what I will do know: Fortune's Weave will be announced as far as overviews and a date around that game. As to when, man, that's a tough one. I'm going to default to you on that one. I have no idea.
Well, as discussed back in March, I had heard, a summer release. Now, how
I'm going to say
liberal
August.
do you want to be?
August.
Okay.
Because September is way too stacked. October is October. So yeah, I'm going to say at the end of August.
I could see it be that late August, maybe September release. I don't think, even though September is packed, a lot of the games in September also aren't destined for Switch 2. So I don't think Nintendo is all that concerned. Nintendo also knows they can compete with these games.
Of course, yeah.
So I don't think a full lineup is really something that's going to deter Nintendo from putting a game where they want. And I know you have people saying Nintendo will never put a game in late October or November because of Grand Theft Auto 6. I don't think Nintendo is really concerned about Grand Theft Auto 6 either.
No, I agree with that. They don't
if they want to put a game around it, they will.
Yeah.
And the game will do fine. So when it comes to Fire Emblem, I do think that August, first half of September window, because you also have the always interesting amiibo theory. And Nintendo has dated amiibo as coming out around mid-September. And if you look through history, whenever amiibo release, they're always in close proximity to a game release. Not even of the same franchise, just a game release. So maybe the amiibo theory will run relevant to Fire Emblem. I think that'd be interesting to see Fire Emblem release in those opening weeks of September. But whenever it releases, I will be there with interest. Now, the other games of wonder for Nintendo include 3D Mario. Back in March, I had shared that 3D Mario will not be coming in 2026. But that does not mean Nintendo cannot reveal 3D Mario in 2026. Do you think Nintendo will have a trailer for a new 3D Mario game at this Direct? Or do you think it's something Nintendo could potentially hold for September, or maybe even hold until 2027?
I don't think there's going to be a 3D Mario reveal at the June Nintendo Direct. I think it's probably going to show up in the September Direct for later this year, based on the fact that I think we all agree that there is no 3D Mario slated for 2026, unless the information we have is not accurate, which I don't think so. I personally don't expect to hear about it at this direct, Nate.
I am in agreement with you. I don't think we get a 3D Mario trailer at this direct.
Yeah.
I think just when you look through the history and the trends of how Nintendo approaches 3D Mario releases and announcements, I don't think they need to do one right now. I don't think there's any sense of urgency to announce the 3D Mario game at this particular direct. Could it be September? Maybe. But I wouldn't be all that shocked if Nintendo went 2026 without a 3D Mario reveal at all.
For sure.
It's all about the timing of when is it right for them to announce and show this game for the first time. And a lot of that has to do with its release timing. So depending when in 2027 a 3D Mario game releases is going to dictate when Nintendo feels it is right to reveal the game for that first time.
Do you think that the price increase of the Switch 2 in September will be a determining factor on when they show us a 3D Mario trailer? Do you think it makes sense to have it in a September direct at the same time to really let people know, hey, we have increased the price of the Switch 2, and you as a consumer may be wondering why we did this. Well, we did this for economic reasons. However, as a reminder, we have some really great games in store for you. Take a look at this. And then they show us a 3D Mario game. Do you think that makes sense? Or do you think there's any kind of correlation between showing us a 3D Mario trailer in September along with the price increase? Or do you think they will just drop it when it's time to drop it?
I'd say they will drop it when it is time to drop it. I think one could definitely argue that when you look at the price increase, it would be in their benefit to announce a game that is further out down that roadmap in terms of releasing. And a 3D Mario game would generate a lot of interest, even with the price increase. And people are like, okay, I got to buy a Switch 2 at $500 so I can play this 3D Mario game. But Nintendo is not a very reactive company. I don't think they're going to look at the price increase and say, okay, we have to do something to generate a lot of interest around our brand. Now, if sales suddenly crashed following the September price increase, maybe Nintendo would reevaluate things and say, okay, let's do what we do at Star Fox and just throw a Mario Direct in October or November just to generate some buzz. But knowing that Nintendo traditionally hosts a Direct in those opening couple of months of the calendar year, I don't think the gap between September to, say, a potential February or March Direct is significant enough to warrant that they would have to do a 3D Mario reveal in September due to the price increase.
Yeah.
Because you could go through this season, go into early 2027, announce and show 3D Mario, and I think you'd be fine. It just comes down to when next year does the game come out. And when you look through Nintendo's approach to Switch 2 since last year, they have been very reserved in announcing games in the long term. Splatoon Raiders and Fire Emblem Fortune Weave are the outliers. Those are the only games they announced way in advance. But after they announced them, they went silent. They didn't speak of the games again for 9 to 10 months. So that feels it's not very Nintendo in recent years to do that. Why they did it with those games, definitely, it's definitely something fans can question. Splatoon, you could argue it was an anniversary year, so they wanted to give you something, a little tease of the future. Fire Emblem, just kind of surprising that they announced it so far in advance. But with 3D Mario, I don't think they have to.
Yeah.
And also when you look at the lineup of potential games still to come this year, I don't know if you need the 3D Mario reveal right now. I don't know if you necessarily need it in 2026, but I mean, this will naturally be a topic of conversation we revisit later this year and whether or not we still feel the same way. But right now, I'm not expecting anything related to Mario at this direct in general. I'm not expecting to see Mario Kart World DLC or anything either. Even though it's been 1 year since it released, I'm expecting minimal representation from Mario.
I think if they don't show us Mario Kart DLC after a year of the game coming out, being priced at $80, I think I'm not saying it's a miss, but I'd be a little bit surprised that they don't have anything to show us in Mario Kart.
Well, when you look at Mario Kart 8, it took years before we saw the first DLC packs. And you could definitely make the argument that they may have not been prepared to do DLC back on the Wii U, and they just kind of panicked.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could definitely see your point of it's been a year since Mario Kart World released. It was $80. If you want to keep this game engaged, if you want to keep people interested, you should show a roadmap of future content. Especially when Nintendo, I believe last year, said, we're going to show you why the price is $80 and that price is going to be justified. And you could definitely argue that has not been the case. So, hey, definitely be hopeful that we get some new look at Mario Kart future planning. I'm just not expecting anything right now. And it does come down to that looming expectation of the possibility of a September Direct. It just comes down to what do they hold for that?
Yeah.
What's that holdover content? And is June going to primarily focus on games coming in 2026 with maybe a little spillover in early 2027 or just 2026? And I think that definitely shapes your expectations for this show as to which of those two Nintendo is going to approach as.
Yeah. Mario Kart is an interesting one. It's been very interesting to see the trajectory of that game from launch to now. And I've heard, look, there's no solid numbers on this, but I've heard a lot of people have gone back to Mario Kart 8. Are they going back and playing that? So I don't know. I feel like maybe they need to tell us something about it, but we can definitely move on. Like, I think the one game that we haven't talked about yet, Nate, which is the big one that you did announce back when we did our February episode, was the Ocarina of Time remake. Now, this game is, I believe, an absolute lock for this Nintendo Direct. But this is Nintendo Direct. Nothing is ever really a lock, is it? Like, we think that this game is going to be in there, and I've predicted various games in the past, absolutely showing up at Directs, and they, for whatever reason, didn't get in. But I think Ocarina of Time remake is a game that will probably close out the show, and I think it's going to impress. What do you think? Am I on the right path here, or do you think that it's not quite time yet?
I think if Ocarina of Time is to be positioned as Nintendo's holiday release, this is the right time for them to reveal the game. You could definitely bring up the counterpoint of, look what Nintendo did with Star Fox. What if they don't have it in the Direct, and then a few weeks they decide to do a Zelda 40th anniversary Direct, announce it 10 minutes ahead of time, and in that presentation we get a look at the Zelda movie, and then we get the first look at the Ocarina of Time remake, with if it's getting a limited edition system or anything like that. As we've discussed earlier this year, Nintendo's marketing approach has changed. Definitely. They're using Nintendo today. They're using socials more than ever. But I think something of the caliber of Ocarina of Time remake and as a holiday release, I think not having it at a Nintendo Direct is an error.
Yes,
that would be a marketing mistake. And I think it has to have a presence here. Maybe not a full on, showcase. You don't have to have the Zelda blowout. Just remember that a few years ago when that was said, and Zelda never showed up to anything.
I do.
But but no, I think I think at least in the month of June, even if it's not just the direct itself, even if it is some succession
Yeah.
presentations, Zelda has to have meaningful representation this month, just leading towards its holiday release. But that I think you could also extend to Duskbloods if
Yes.
that is a holiday release as well. I think Nintendo has to showcase what their holiday is. And as we discussed in March, if it's these two games, they have to have significant presence in a June Direct because these are going to be the games that sell your system this holiday. As far as just releases within that holiday season, yes, you have the back catalog of games, but I think both of those games have to have meaningful presence this month and at this Direct
I
because
agree.
these games are going to be statement pieces for the hardware and for the software library.
Yeah, I agree. Dustbloods was a launch game, right? Or a launch, it was announced at launch.
Yes.
So yeah, we're at the point now where this game needs to show up, and we need to see more of it. It looks very interesting, and it's a game that I think if they show it again, which they probably will, it may be a game that I end up picking up, which I'm pretty excited about. But I want to go back to Ocarina of Time remake for a minute because this is a very interesting topic. Look, you're right. Nintendo has various ways of communicating information via Twitter, via the Nintendo Today app, and they've certainly used that format in recent times. And yes, the marketing has changed, no doubt about it, in the last 12 months or so. But we have to be serious. This is a general Nintendo Direct, and if you're not bringing your best game to this Direct, then I think you're right. That's an absolute miss. So, for me, Ocarina of Time remake will probably close the show out, and we'll probably see about 10 minutes of it. And I think, look, I don't know what to expect, but I have an idea in my head about what I want this game to be, and I'd like to think that it's not going to disappoint. Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time obviously is one of the best games ever made, and it's beloved by so many people. But it's also a very old game on the N64 that runs at about 20 frames per second and has a lot of issues. So I think Nintendo is fully aware of that fact, but it really depends on the developer that's also working on this. But I think if there's any the phrase they understood the assignment, I think that this would really fit the Ocarina of Time remake. I don't think Nintendo's going to mess this up in any capacity. I think they're going to treat this remake with a lot of respect. So I think it's going to show. And to your point, it may show up again later on in June, maybe at a Treehouse event or some additional follow-ups. But I think this is the big one for them. And, they know it. This is what they have for 2026. So they're really going to throw a lot of time on this one on the Direct, personally.
Yeah, I think out of the Nintendo representation in the Direct, Ocarina of Time will have likely the most. I think Duskblood will follow in second because Duskbloods is a concept that you have to sell well. This isn't just a basic FromSoft game. I mean, this is an online game. This is a game that they have to show how all these features, how the community features are going to work. I think it's a game that if you look at Elden Ring Night Rain, had multiple online beta and playtest. I think with Duskblood, that's something they have to follow as well. They have to do some sort of playtest, be it the summer or fall leading up to its release, so they can make sure the servers are adequate and perform well. But with Ocarina of Time, they have to deliver a lot on this game because, as you said, Ocarina of Time is revered as one of the greatest games of all time. Now, considering its age, it's very antiquated if you were to go back and play it today. And now it's about bringing that game to a modern audience. And doing so, you have to be very careful because you risk alienating the hardcore fans if you change too much. But if you don't change enough, it just becomes very safe.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to walk that fine line. So I'm interested to see how Nintendo really approaches this project. What type of quality of life changes do you implement in this release? And when you do release it, how do you approach even its visual and artistic direction? What type of changes do you implement? How much of the game is going to feel familiar to longtime fans, and how much is going to feel fresh and new? So I'm very interested to see what Nintendo does with this project.
Yeah.
Because even like discussing the existence of the project, not knowing the scope and ambition of the project, that's where the excitement is going to come from. And seeing the visual direction that the game has, seeing that fidelity, because that is what's going to excite and sell you and hype you. So I'm really interested to see what this game has planned and in store for us, because again, it's one of my favorite games of all time. So if you want to bring the game to modern hardware and almost allow us to relive our childhood experience with the game for a first time, they have to deliver something special here. And I think Nintendo knows what they have. I don't think they would have touched Ocarina of Time if it was just going to be a middling effort. This is something they have to approach with care. And I'm really interested and excited to see what Nintendo is going to do with that. Same with Duskbloods. I'm really excited to see what FromSoft and Nintendo have in store with that game. But I also want to bring up a couple of other projects that we discussed back in March for Switch 2 release potentially this year, like a Pikmin 4 Switch 2 edition, a new Switch sports game, and even that possibility of a Xenoblade Chronicle 2 Switch 2 edition, or maybe a definitive edition of some kind. What are the odds all three or one of those three make an appearance here?
Pretty high, I think. I like both. Pikmin 4, maybe adding, some new content, maybe a new level or something. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is another one that I could very easily see Switch 2 editions. Switch 2 editions are really good announcements at Nintendo Directs. And both of those games could see it. Look, it's the same thing I said about Sega and Capcom and Konami. We could see one of these. We could see all of them. My money is we're probably going to see a couple of them show up. Switch 2 editions always excite, and they're always very well received. So yeah, I think so. That makes a lot of sense to me.
So far with the Nintendo predictions, we've largely recapped what we discussed back in March.
Yep.
Do you think Nintendo has any surprises that they could announce at this Direct, either as a 2026 release or maybe a early 2027 release?
Well, Nate, you did say on Twitter, surprises still remain. I believe that was what you said. Mm-hmm. And I think there is something that we haven't seen yet announced. Now, the question is, what would that look like? We already discussed 3D Mario, probably not this year, and probably not announced at this Direct, which I think we both agree that is to be the case. We know Star Fox 2 is coming. We could see some more information about that, but we've already seen quite a bit of Star Fox 2 already. The game is coming out just in a couple of weeks from now, right? Towards the end of the month. So maybe that one's already kind of set in stone. So what would we see from a brand new game that has not been announced yet? I don't think a brand new IP is on the table at this time. So then we have to turn to, I don't want to say the B tier games, because that's kind of disrespecting some of these franchises, but you know what I'm talking about. The games that maybe don't cost as much money to make. And I'm talking about maybe a brand new Kirby game gets announced, or maybe a Luigi's Mansion 4 game is revealed as well. But I think the difficulty with Luigi's Mansion 4 is it would most likely release in October, which which could happen, right? You could announce a Luigi's Mansion 4 title at a Nintendo Direct in June for an October release. Could definitely see that. And that would be a very hype announcement considering how well Luigi's Mansion 3 did. But maybe it's just a Mario Party game or something along those lines. I do think Nintendo does have something they haven't announced yet that we're not privy to, but it's a coin toss as to what that would look like.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of stuff we even discussed back in March are games Nintendo hasn't announced yet. So, like anything here would be kind of just a surprise to us. And one thing that I think has the possibility of having an announcement maybe in this direct is that outside of Zelda's anniversary, it's also Metroid's 40th anniversary. And Metroid may not be at the caliber or tier as a Mario or Zelda franchise, but it is important to the history of gaming. And you can look at some of the rumors and claims from earlier this year that had suggested a Super Metroid remake was coming this year, and even some mentions of Metroid Dread 2. I think of those two, if we were to see a Metroid announcement at this direct, I think I would favor a Metroid Dread 2 announcement. I think that would be the game that makes the most sense for an announcement this year. But I'm not saying release this year. I think that would be a release in 2027 because, as you kind of outlined, 2026 is becoming quite full.
Mm-hmm.
And Nintendo, essentially, it looks as though they would have a release every month from this month forward, especially if you start including things like the hypothetical Switch 2 Sports.
Yep.
Fire Emblem, the potential of a Pikmin 4 Switch 2 edition, Xenoblade Chronicles Switch 2 editions, Zelda, Duskbloods. It's a very full lineup. And then, as you mentioned, what if we do get a 2D Kirby game? What if there is still a to be announced game of, we'll call it, as you said, like a B tier Zelda franchise or B tier Nintendo franchise getting a release this year just out of nowhere unexpectedly? You would have one or two releases every month for the remainder of 2026. So when I think of a game, as you mentioned, like a Luigi's Mansion 4, Metroid Dread 2, I think those are too big to just slot in a month this year. And I think those are games that would be better off served for 2027. So I want to see a Metroid Dread 2 get announced. I think it makes a lot of sense. And it fits into that anniversary vibe. It's been a long time since Metroid Dread 1, Metroid Dread, the first one, released.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the best-selling Metroid game. So naturally, a sequel makes a lot of sense. But I think that would be my surprise announcement from Nintendo at this direct, a Dread sequel.
I like where you're headed with this. I love the fact that, you're throwing out a Dread 2 game, because I really like Dread a lot. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's the right time for a Dread 2. I think the only thing Metroid we're going to see maybe is an NSO drop of Prime 2. And if they can figure out Prime 3 Corruption, then we're going to get that too at some point too. But I could see Prime 2 dropping on NSO. And that's another thing, like NSO, announcements, they usually kind of show up in September where they may be announcing a new system and kind of refresh the list of games. But man, we've hardly gotten anything on GameCube. We've had a sprinkling of titles here and there. But I think Nintendo really needs to up the ante a bit and show us what's on the forecast over the next few months for NSO, starting with Prime 2. I like Prime 2 for this direct. Not sure about Dread 2 personally.
We could definitely see some NSO roadmaps here. It wouldn't surprise too much. But at the same time, it's feeling like this direct maybe got a little too heavy in software announcements.
Yep.
Maybe we were a little too ambitious with our predictions.
We always are.
True. I mean, all those third-party predictions, first-party predictions, I mean, it sounds like a very significant direct if even half of it were to come true. But definitely excited for what Nintendo could have planned for this direct. Something to look forward to. And as we mentioned at the start of the episode, when you look at the quality of everything that's happened over the last week, from Sony State of Play, Summer Games Fest presentation, the Xbox Showcase, Nintendo has to continue that trend and deliver a quality show. And there's no reason to think they won't.
For sure. I think it's going to be a good one. And it's really going to kickstart year 2 of the Switch 2, which I think is going to be a pivotal year for Nintendo and the hardware. I think they're really going to find their feet and hit the next gear on their software releases. So I think overall this is going to be a good direct for sure.
Agreed. With that, we go to YouTube member questions, and our first comes from Hugo Gaming Bee. Do you think that Luigi's Mansion 4 could be there?
Well, now that someone else mentioned it and I predicted it, I'm going to say yes. It's going to be there.
Then had a question from the Swedish Emblem. Any idea if Atlas will be there? I talk Switch 2 port of Metaphor, Persona 4 Revival, and Persona 6 announcement for Switch 2. I think any one of those three has the possibility of being there from Atlas, as we discussed earlier in the episode. I think my preference and most realistic expectation would be an announcement of Metaphor ReFantasio for Switch 2.
Yeah, I agree. I never played the game because I was always kind of waiting for it on Switch 2. And you know me, Nate, I haven't played my Switch 2 very much, so I'd love to really dive into Metaphor on Switch 2. So hopefully we get it.
Then had a question from the Dark Voids. I really don't know what to ask because I have a strong feeling that it's going to be a good direct. But I guess ask something. Is there a chance for The Witcher getting a Switch 2 edition, and will the new expansion come to Switch 2? Keep up the good work, guys, and Mario Sunshine is a good game. Just for that Mario Sunshine comment, I'm not sure if I want to answer that question.
Answer the man's question.
I think it is an inevitability for The Witcher 3 to get a Switch 2 edition. I think it would just be closer to maybe the first look at the DLC expansion that they just recently announced. So maybe around Gamescom, we could potentially see a Switch 2 edition of Witcher 3 get confirmed by CD Projekt Red. But we'll see. I think such a release makes a lot of sense if you're CD Projekt Red to make a Switch 2 edition of The Witcher 3, especially when you look at the quality they did with Cyberpunk. The visual leap and performance increase you could get from The Witcher 3 on Switch 2 would be significant and very meaningful. I'd say it's likely just a matter of time. So when, not if, but hopefully we get official confirmation soon. Then had a question from Fangs the Wolf. Hey, Nate and MVG. Recently, the demo versions of the Switch cloud versions of the Kingdom Hearts games were delisted. Do you know why this happened, and do you think it might be hinting that native Switch 2 ports might be coming? Thanks again, and keep up the great work. As we touched on in the episode, yes, I do think native Switch 2 ports of the Kingdom Hearts games will be coming to Switch 2, and that's likely why the cloud editions were removed.
I hope so.
Then I had a question from Carbivan. Predictions for first special edition Switch 2 console. Might be a bit bold to do special editions only after the price hike, but that's not really in Nintendo's control. A gold Ocarina of Time Switch 2 would sell out instantly, regardless of price, I think. Keep up the good work. This past week has been busy.
Yeah, I like a special edition Zelda console. It's kind of tradition almost at this point that Nintendo shows us something. A gold Switch 2. That'd be pretty cool. I may have to double dip, although my wallet is really going to hurt if I have to buy another console as well. But I may do it. We'll have to see how it turns out.
And a question from MSQPSKQMI. Hey, Nate, any chance we see anything Chrono Trigger related in the future Nintendo Directs? If there is something in the works, of course. I mean, if we're talking about any future Nintendo Direct spanning all of,
All of
I
time?
guess, all
Yes.
of time, possibly. In the immediate future, I'm not expecting anything, but we can always hold hope that sometime in the next decade, we will see something related to Chrono Trigger happen. Then a question from Random29. Hey, Nate and MVG. Nintendo have described 3D Mario games in two forms, Sandbox 3D and Core Space 3D. Bowser's Fury seems to be an experiment in the sandbox direction. Do you think 3D Mario will be looking to go into that direction in the future? Yes. I think whatever the next 3D Mario game is, I think they're going to do a sandbox open world design. I think they want to have a huge scope and vision for the game, tons of exploration, and that's good. That's what's going to set it apart from previous 3D Mario games. So that's what my vision is for what Nintendo would be doing with the next 3D Mario game. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think this is the one, right, where it's really going to be the biggest 3D Mario adventure we've ever seen, with a lot of new core systems built. And yeah, I don't want to overhype it, right? I don't want to overhype it because, every 3D Mario game that comes out is always good, except for Sunshine. But I think it's going to be good.
Then a question from Zombie Porin. How many games announced by Nintendo will be dated for 2027? More than one? Love the show and good luck pre-ordering that clear green Xbox.
Well, I haven't seen the price of that Xbox yet. I'm sure that sticker shock is probably just going to make me think, well, maybe I don't need it after all, but we'll see.
1 terabyte Cosmic Black Series X is $650, so you got to figure the 25th anniversary has to be $750.
I'm thinking
$150 increase for 1 terabyte.
Ooh.
Just for a clear green case. I don't know. That seems high.
Maybe they bundle a game code with it as well. I don't know.
No, you're talking about Microsoft. Like, you're getting a controller and the system. I could see $750, I think, as the highest price.
Oof.
Any higher than that, I don't see why people would even consider pre-ordering.
That's even a lot to consider. I already have a Series X, but
but it's not it's not green.
Maybe if I win the lottery, I'll get one.
As to your question of how many games Nintendo will be dating for 2027, I kind of think it's going to be few. I don't think Nintendo is going to focus too much on 2027 at this particular Direct. I think they want to focus on 2026. So maybe we see, I think I would say at most 2 or 3. If it exceeds that, I'd be surprised. Then a question from Jeff O'Brien, 123. Hi, Nate and VG. Do you know of any Switch 2 versions for older games, such as The Witcher 3? Also, where are we in terms of a new 2D Donkey Kong Country game? Heard anything about that? No, I haven't, but I wish and hope that we get a new 2D Donkey Kong Country game.
Same. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, as for The Witcher 3, as answered earlier, I think it's just kind of a matter of time when CD Projekt Red would be ready to announce such a thing. And I think it would be closer to when they give a official formal look at the DLC expansion, ideally sometime later this year. Then we had a question from CJ Ice Celeste. Hey, Nate. Thanks for bringing us info. Any other news about Zelda? Ocarina of Time Remake shall be on this week's Direct, right? What about Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD? Are they coming to Switch 1 or Switch 2? I believe we will get news about the movie in this Direct, correct? Also, what is the other project of Zelda rumored for next year that hasn't been talked much on leaks nor rumored? Are you aware of any other Zelda projects besides the Ocarina of Time remake? And do you know if we will get a Switch 2 hardware special for Zelda this year or next? Thanks in advance. I do not know anything about Wind Waker or Twilight Princess coming to either Switch 1 or Switch 2. I don't know if we'll get a look at the movie, but potentially. Depends if Nintendo wants to kind of make a Zelda 40th anniversary focus segment in the Direct, I would wager. As to the other Zelda project rumored for next year, I'm not aware of another Zelda project at time. So not really familiar with the rumor either. So I'm not sure how far they went with details or claims, or if it's just we'll get Zelda something next year, which isn't too much of a rumor because at one time Zelda was a annual release. We would get a Zelda game of some form every single year through much of the 3DS and early portion of the Switch. You would include mainline, spin-offs, remakes, and so forth. And, I think a hardware special edition for Zelda with Switch 2 would make a lot of sense for this holiday, but we'll have to see what Nintendo had planned. Then a question from Angrio. Any news on Pokemon Winds and Waves general release timing? I haven't heard anything regarding that. I know there's been some rumors that have suggested that maybe the game would be a late 2027 release. I think ideally, given when the game was shown, I would love to see the game release in early 2027, right around the time we saw Pokopia. But it all comes down to the timeline that the Pokemon Company and Game Freak have in mind for the game. Hopefully it comes out sooner than later. Then a question from Hythen Hitham me. I can't pronounce that. I apologize. Hythman Gamma Man. Hello, Nate and MVG. Hello, Nate and MVG. Is Nate, this is something I want to ask you is this. Are we going to Halo Master Chief Collection to go multi-plat, though, despite the rumor you said from January of 2025? I am aware of Halo campaign involved going multi-plat and maybe the future Halo remakes. But any update on Master Chief Collection and the first remake of Halo on Switch 2 or something? And I would love if you are a guest on Play Day 1 hosted by Jesse, Nick, and John. But up to you if you like.
Oh, that's Xbox era, I believe. Jesse, Nick, and John. I think he wants you to be on Special Nick's show.
That's right. They rebranded to Play Day 1 from Xbox era.
Yeah,
that's right. As for the question about Halo Master Chief Collection, I haven't heard anything since 2024. I'm not sure if the project got shelved after Microsoft made a lot of layoffs and began changing plans around releases. I've never heard anything about Halo Campaign Evolved coming to Switch 2. So right now, I don't have anything to share about Halo coming to Switch 2. I then had a question from Aquinata. Do you think Monolith Soft will bring older Xeno games to Switch 2 in any form? Remasters, remakes? If you mean Xenoblade Chronicles, I think Switch 2 editions for Switch 2 make a lot of sense. If you're referring to Monolith's more distant catalog of games like Xenogears, I don't think that'll ever happen. Then I had a question from Dream TTS. Hey, Nate and MVG. What do you think are the chances of seeing Halo and Fable come to Switch 2? Seeing the amount of love Xbox is giving PlayStation 5, with the exception of Gears of War, I'm curious why they wouldn't do something similar for Switch 2, considering PS5 is arguably its closest competitor. Any ideas why Switch 2 isn't getting the same treatment? I would imagine a lot of it has to do with technical limitations. When you look at some of these games being developed for Xbox Series, going to PlayStation 5, you have to keep in mind the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series are very close in terms of specs. And it might also just be a case of Microsoft looking at the audience and wondering and considering where the games would sell best on. A game like Fable, considering its open world nature, could potentially be very CPU heavy, and it may not run well enough on Switch 2, but I'm sure these are games that Microsoft is exploring for Switch 2, and it just comes down to whether or not the budget, time, and resources would justify bringing the title to the platform. Also have to keep in mind when would they have been given access to dev kits, and what type of turnaround would it be to get a port of those games on the platform? But I don't think it's a deliberate attempt to not bring the games to the platform. It might just be a case of budget or the game not performing up to par to bring it to the Switch 2. But you can always hold hope that more future Xbox studio games do find their way to Switch 2. And our last YouTube members question comes from Farrell. Hi, Nate. Do you think we'll see major announcements of new games from companies like Sega, Capcom, Bandai Namco, Square Enix, Ubisoft, and other third-party developers at this Nintendo Direct? Also, could a new Ace Attorney game be announced there? So of those companies, we do expect some significant and meaningful announcements from all of the companies you brought up outside of Ubisoft, whom we did not discuss. But be it new games or late ports from those studios, definitely expect some representation from them. As for Ace Attorney, it feels like that's one of those games whenever anyone predicts or expects it to show up, it never does. So the fact that we didn't mention it, maybe that will bode well, and Ace Attorney will be able to yell objection and surprise everybody.
I hope so.
And now we go to the Streamlabs questions of the episode. And our first comes from Dark B. Andy, who donated $1 and asks, random question, favorite type of cheese you like to put on your grilled cheese sandwich?
Provolone.
Really?
Oh, on grilled cheese? No, maybe I wouldn't do provolone. Maybe, maybe just American cheese, I think I'd put on a grilled sandwich.
Yeah, I would just go with American. Yeah. It has enough thickness and like body that it melts well. So I was shocked when you said provolone. Usually that almost like evaporates.
If I had a cold sandwich, like a sub, I'd definitely put provolone on that. But yeah, for grilled cheese, American.
And then had a donation from Kaba, donated $5, and they write, hey, Nate and MVG, big fans, both of you, and happy to finally get to support you. I was wondering if you had any info on MiHoYo games coming to Switch 2, like Genshin Impact, since files leaked recently pointing to in the game. Thanks, guys. You know what? I think that's a great direct prediction. I think Genshin Impact finally, after 5 years of waiting, gets confirmed for Switch 2.
All right. Put it in there.
Then had a $1 donation from Grandpa. Any chance next 3D Mario revisits Galaxy, even via throwback levels? Could the rumored 2029 film be based on that game versus past ones? For Mario Maker 3, do you see 3 inevitably being used to market a 3D editor? What 4 3D Mario games make the cut and why?
Damn. Where do you begin with that one?
Well, we start at the very beginning. Very good place to start. Any chance the next 3D Mario revisits Galaxy, even via throw? It depends the scope of the game, depends the direction of the game.
I like to think it's a completely different game, but they could revisit the Galaxy.
As for the movie, I mean, it depends if there's already work being done on the movie and there's no game announced yet. It'd be kind of hard to base the game or base the movie on the game. So depends where the state of the movie is at this stage. As for Mario Maker 3, I honestly would be very surprised if we get a Mario Maker 3.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they did and they did include a 3D editor, what 4 3D Mario games would make the cut? I would say 3D World.
I could see 3D World.
Galaxy. Mario 64. Basically every 3D Mario game but Mario Sunshine, because that never deserves acknowledgement. Then I had a $7 donation from Malik D. Miles. Hi, Mr. Nate. With Persona 6 officially announced, do you think we'll get it in late 2027 after Revival? Also, do you think there will be a fully playable female protagonist alongside the leaked male one? Thank you for your time. Ideally, yes, it releases in that second half of 2027, but Persona games are also infamous for being delayed after their initial release window. And given this one has taken nearly a decade to actually come out, hopefully it avoids that fate. So I would love to see it in late 2027, but we'll have to find out when Atlas shares additional information. Then I had a $7 donation from Wayleek. Hi, Mr. Nate. What are the chances that we'll get a Legend of Dragoon or Blue Dragon remake? Interested to hear your thoughts on this. Of those two, I probably wager Blue Dragon has the greater odds, but I would say those odds are probably pretty slim across the board for both of them. I don't think Sony would have any interest in investing in a Legend of Dragoon remake, and Blue Dragon, as much as I would love to see it, I don't really know the path forward to make that a reality. Just kind of have to hope for it. That was the last Streamlabs question for the episode. If you'd like to support the channel, you can become a YouTube member, where you're given advance notice of the episode so you can ask questions pertinent to the episode, or you can support us with Streamlabs, where you can donate any dollar amount, ask a question. We will answer it at the end of the episode. If you donate $100 or more, we will dedicate the episode to you. And with that, let me thank MVG for joining me as always.
Always a pleasure, Nate. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully this direct will be a good one. I think it will be. Looking forward to it.
And let us know your expectations and thoughts on the direct in the comment section below. And until next time, continue to embrace the hate.
With Nate and MVG, dissecting all the lies. Make the hate rocket hard, MVG dropping knowledge bombs. Best podcast sitting strong, guiding us where we belong. Through the pixels and the codes, breaking down what future holds. Nate and MVG showing us the gaming gold.